Hello everybody, welcome to Awesome Rusty Bike, and subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second. It makes a massive difference in terms of how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. So I must apologize for being gone for a few days. I went to a Paramore concert and it was the best day of my life, but that meant that I was away for a few days and I missed 2 key games, as well as what the title of this video is, potentially a huge thing that I think probably isn't actually going to happen, but it at least merits a discussion. So first of all, Nuggets versus Lakers game 4. LeBron James had easily his best playoff game by far. I saw a lot of discussion after, like people saying like, I'm not sure LeBron can still be a star player much longer, which I found ludicrous that discourse happened after he put up like 40, 10, and 9 on 1 foot, essentially how he's been playing this playoffs. Hit a bunch of 3-pointers. His jump shot in general looked a lot better. So hopefully this is the sign that he can turn things around if he does indeed end up playing next year. We'll talk about that more in a second. I just want to say for the Denver Nuggets, I told you so. When I picked the Nuggets to win in 6, I cannot tell you how many comments I got accusing me of being a Lakers hater. Turns out I was being very charitable to them. I didn't think they'd get swept, but here we are. AD also struggled in that game. I did see a great point from, God, I can't remember his freaking name. Very prominent analyst. God, I can't remember his name. I'm so sorry, but he was talking about how AD is so dominant on defense that maybe we should give him a little bit of a break for his sometimes struggles offensively. And I think I do agree with that to some extent. But at the same time, with the framework of how this Lakers roster works, if AD doesn't score a decent chunk of points, they're not going to win. And he did score like 20-ish, but on poor efficiency. D'Angelo Russell, horrible series. Not great in the postseason at large. And what I really find interesting about this Lakers roster is, looking back, the reason why I was so high on this team was the Russell Westbrook trade that they made, getting D'Angelo Russell, getting Jared Vanderbilt, and getting Malik Beasley, only for all 3 of those guys to be unplayable in the postseason. Don't get me wrong, LA still played at least Vando and D'Angelo a decent bit, but Vando's lack of 3-point shooting just ruined any impact he had defensively, and D'Angelo Russell, not a very impactful defender, and was shooting horribly on offense. So I find it interesting that with all that being the case, the Lakers still managed to make the conference finals. So it's not necessarily a good look for like the Russell Westbrook factor there, you know, the addition by subtraction argument. But at the same time, I will attest that I think it was simply just a matter of a change in spacing for real. Also, by the time this video comes out, we will be live streaming our podcast pretty soon, roughly around the same timetable, unless this goes out later than I intended. 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be talking with Alex Hoops, another NBA YouTuber, as well as Rudy, about
the same overall topic as this video, but in more depth, as well as another topic which you will only find out about by tuning into the podcast live every Thursday at 4:30 p.m.
But that aside, I guess we can quickly talk about LeBron and his potential retirement. I don't think he's going to do it. I have seen a lot of people make the argument that he was either A, just trying to be dramatic for, you know, media attention, which I think is a little uncharitable, but LeBron James definitely enjoys a good story. He's aware, very much so, of the narrative element of basketball and has always played to it, which frankly I can only appreciate. But I don't think that's it. The argument that I more so saw was it was a little bit of pressure on the Lakers front office to be like, all right, man, you need to do something because I'm not going to be here much longer, if at all, if you don't do something. The Kyrie Irving thing has been discussed a lot. Look, I realized there was that report that the Lakers were like committed to bringing D'Angelo Russell back and not doing the Kyrie thing. I think that would be the wrong decision, and I think given how this postseason went, they're not going to go that direction. Now, I understand Kyrie's issues off of the court and all of that, and sometimes being locker room problems, all that, but also he will have LeBron James there, and the only time apparently where Kyrie Irving wasn't somewhat of an issue for a team to deal with was when he was early on in his career, and then when LeBron was there. So that's a dominant personality that I think will hopefully hold back Kyrie, because he's not really going to be in any kind of leadership role. So whatever weird shit or problematic shit he wants to get into will hopefully not be a problem. I think it's ultimately worth that risk because you have a short window here, as I've talked about with LA multiple times, and Kyrie Irving is very, very good. And I think that big three, and you hope if LeBron can give you one more year of very good borderline, I think he made all NBA this year, all NBA level production, and hopefully go into this postseason not dealing with a foot injury. In that case, I do think LA could have a very strong chance of winning a title next year. That said, if LeBron is serious and he's actually going to pull the trigger on that, I would be very surprised, just given that he seems like the type to have wanted and appreciated a what do you call that, like retirement tour or whatever, where, you know, every time you play a team for the last time, that entire crowd is packed because it's their last chance to see LeBron James play their team. You know, I finally actually got to see LeBron in the playoffs versus the Memphis Grizzlies. So, you know, if he does retire, I really got in at the buzzer there. Literally, it was the third game of the series. No, it was the second game of the series. Second game of the series. So what is that? How long was that series? Was it 6 games? So yeah, like 8 games after would have been his last game if he does indeed retire. That said, I'm not expecting that to happen. I think it's probably just, again, a motivation for that Lakers front office, but you know, it's worth talking about at the very least, even if it's somewhat of a possibility. I've also seen some people suggest like maybe he would just take a year off, come back one more year for whatever team his son's on, and then be done with it. But I don't really understand what the point of that would be, because it's him getting less money, and LeBron is anything if not a capitalist, and he also, his body would get in worse shape just not from having the training regimen and the season to deal with and all of that. And there's a decent chance they can retool this roster to be a legitimate title contender, and I don't feel like LeBron is one to walk away from that. So money, him being in shape for playing basketball with his son, and potentially winning, all of that gets thrown out the window if he decides to leave. I mean, it's definitely possible with the funding LeBron has to remain in shape and just ultimately have more time for his family. But I don't know. I think it would be better for him to stay and then do that thing with his son, which ultimately I would be shocked if he's not going to at the very least try to do that, because it's something he's talked about at a very large extent. And it's just a very, very cool story and something that would be very enjoyable to see play out. A father and son on the same basketball team. It's just very interesting. There's no other way to look at it. I know it's happening like baseball and shit, but like, you know, I don't care about baseball. So also real quick, I want to talk about the Celtics winning game 4 versus the Miami Heat. No, I don't think the Celtics are going to win this series. I did find it funny when when I think Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart said something along the lines of like, don't let us get a win in this series. I don't think they're going to win 3 straight. That would be pretty ludicrous. But the Celtics, at least on paper, should be a better team, and 2 of their next 3 games are on Boston's home floor. So there is a chance I would say they push it to 6, maybe, but very unlikely, maybe 7. But I think they could probably win tonight's game in Boston, and then Miami will probably blow them out in game 6 in Miami if that does happen, or maybe they'll just do that today. We'll have to wait and see. That said, yeah, Jason Tatum was awesome in that game. Definitely, I think the best game performance he's had in this series. He had a bunch of turnovers again. He's been real turnover heavy in this series, more so than he normally is. I don't know that he's ever been particularly adept at taking care of the ball, but he's been particularly egregious taking care of the ball lately. But overall, some big shots and good, consistent offense, and it resulted in a pretty big deficit, pretty big blowout for the Boston Celtics, blowout by a playoff standard. And it'll definitely probably spark, at least at the bare minimum, a competitive game in Boston for Game 5. But yeah, just like with the Lakers-Nuggets series, I think it's pretty ludicrous to suggest that a 3-0 comeback is going to happen. One day it presumably will, so anything is possible, of course, but I think until it does happen, we should just never suggest that it will happen, because it's just such a freaking stretch. And I don't think with what Miami has done this postseason, how they've executed, they of all teams would allow something like that to slip by. So that said, yeah, I think Miami's still going to the finals, and if they do win today, there is going to be a series preview that goes goes live. But yeah, that is it. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video. Again, go check out the podcast at 4:30. But that is it. Goodbye.